The cameras were already rolling when Ethan panned inside a packed international hall in Geneva, broadcast live to over 84 countries. Leaders debated urge matters of global security. Bright lights, serious faces, whispers between aides, and then, as if time paused, Donald Trump, now a guest speaker representing a private American in Aishev, took the mic. His voice, loud and boastful, bounced off the marble walls. With all due respect, we can't keep wasting time listening to our nations who bring nothing to the table, like Burkina Faso. The room gasped. A few diplomats shifted uncomfortably. Some even looked toward the floor. Camera zoomed in. Ibrahim Traoré, president of Burkina Faso, sat silently in his seat, hands folded, eyes locked forward. He didn't blink, hadn't speak, but his silence wasn't weakness, it was weight. Trump chuckled to himself. Let's be honest, no one here takes them seriously. And just like that, the world changed. What no one knew was that Captain Traoré had come to this summit with a folder. Inside it was a truth that could no longer be buried, and he was about to stand up. The silence stretched, tense, unbearable. Traoré rose slowly, every camera lens turning like a machine following heat. He walked down the aisle toward the main podium. No rush, no panic, just a calm so deep, it felt like a storm was hiding behind it. One aide tried to stop him. Mr. B.I. President, maybe we let this go, hadn't responded. When he reached the podium, the light seemed to grow brighter. His military uniform contrasted starkly with the polished suits surrounding him. His eyes scanned the room, not with anger, but with truth. Boss, Mr. Trump, he said, voice steady. When I was a boy, I drank from rivers that ran dry. Not because we mismanaged them, but because your companies poisoned them for profit. Gasps again. We are not irrelevant. We are the receipts of history's unpaid debt. People stared, frozen. One news anchor whispered on live mic, "This just got serious." But Traoré wasn't done. He lifted the folder, brown, weathered, and stamped in bold letters, "Declassified." And that's when the mood shifted. Even Trump leaned forward. Traoré opened the folder, and the first document inside made a French delegate grab his headset in shock. Traoré held the document high. The cameras zoomed in on its seal. Confidential Joint Resource Extraction Agreement, 1998. This Traoré said, voice still calm. ISIN agreement, signed by Western companies, protected by politicians, allowing the removal of over $200 million worth of gold and lithium from Burkina Faso without our people seeing a single coin. The room exploded in whispers. Few delegates exchanged wide glances. Others stared at desk screens around them, which now displayed the document in bold, blown-up letters. Trump fidgeted. His smirk was gone. Trump continued. Your world calls us poor, but we are not poor. We are plundered. A Russian journalist burst into tears, her voice cracking as she whispered, "This is the truth. They never wanted dared." Twitter began to explode. Traoré, truth trended. Within 8 minutes. One American host tweeted, "This is the calmest takedown I've ever seen. Wow, Burkina Faso." But it wasn't over. Not even. Traoré closed the folder gently. "Let me tell you what you stole after the gold," he said. The room held its breath. He looked down, then back up. "You stole our dignity, but you cannot steal our voice." And now, he was just warming up. Traoré looked down at the folder again, his voice low now, almost like a father telling a bedtime story, but heavier, slower, realer. "This next document," he said, "is about a village that no longer exists. Its name was Skonkin. You won't find it on Google, but I lived near it as a child." He held up a faded photo. A village, thatched roofs, barefoot kids, sunlight. In 2004, a foreign mining company protected by international investors found gold beneath that village. Within 14 days, every man, woman, and child was removed. He paused. They weren't interrogated. They were erased. Someone in the room choked back tears. It was the summit's official interpreter. They told us it was for progress. But no schools were built. No hospitals came. Only fences, barbed wire, and silence. The hall was frozen. One of those children in that photo, Mikasan Amadou, died crying. asking why he weren't allowed to go back home. Troy's hands shook slightly. Tell me, Mr. Trump, was his life irrelevant, too? The screen behind him zoomed into Thayboy's face. Dusty cheeks, broken sandals, millions watching on yesterday crying. And he hadn't even gotten to the worst part. The lights dimmed slightly. Troy looked toward the back of the hall, where top MF officials sat stone-faced. In Burkina Faso, took a loan from the International Development Trust. A clean energy grant. Sounds helpful. Yes, have flipped another paper. But the small print allowed a foreign firm to control our national solar grid for 25 years. You call that aid. I call it economico stage taking. He turned the paggy again. And this receipt here is a payment made in cash delivered to a European minister in exchange for silence. The audience gasped. Phones lit up. Screenshots flew across the world. Do you know what we could have done with that energy? He looked around, breath shaking slightly. We could have lit the maternity ward in Djibo. Maybe then my sister Miriam wouldn't have had to give birth in the dark. Maybe then her baby would have lived. Silence. One delegate sobbed into hissings. That child died, not because of God, not because of fate, but because of contracts like this. He held the document like it was a coffin. You want to talk about relevance? Trey's voice cracked. Our pain funds your power. The room wasn't silent anymore. People were crying. Some were shaking their heads. One European ambassador quietly removed her headset and just stared into space. Trey wasn't done. I stand here not to shame you, but to remind you that our suffering has a cost, a consequence. He looked up at Trump. You called me irrelevant, but I am the voice of every African child, buried without a name. He touched his chest, and I carry them with me. Headed to the screen behind him. It now showed a map marked with over 37 abandoned resource towns across West Africa, each one looted, poisoned, forgotten. We're not asking for pity. We're demanding dignity. At that moment, something happened no one expected. One of the delegates, a former British Prime Minister, stood up and began clapping. Another followed, then another. Within seconds, swept the hall. But Trey didn't smile. Not yet. Before you clap for me, he said softly. Ask yourself, would you clap if it was your son buried under that dust? Tears streamed from ice across the world. He stepped back, and the storm was just beginning. As the room calmed, Trey reached into the folder again. Now, let's talk about something. Your cameras never show Hesed. He held up a blurry photograph. It showed a woman barefoot, blood on her dress, carrying a child through a burned-out village. Her name was Fanta. She was 26. That baby was dead. Gasps echoed again. And Thaddy said, pointing to the photo's corner, is a UN peacekeeper boot. Whispers rippled through the room. In 2015, a peacekeeping mission went wrong in a village called Bulisi. After a militant raid, the peacekeepers were ordered to secure the area. He paused. Instead, they opened fire on civilians. Dozens killed. No report, no justice. Headed toward the UN delegates. You called it a fog of war. We call it mass murder. A UN official buried his face in his hands. Fanta died 3 days later at a clinic with no electricity, no medicine, and no press coverage. But her name lives, and so does her pain. The photo appeared on screen behind him. Twitter timelines exploded. Justice for Fanta began trending in 19 countries, but Trua wasn't finished. He turned to a delegate seated directly behind Trump, and his next words cut deeper than any insult. Trua turned it slowly to a clean-shaven European diplomat with a red tie, Ambassador Lehman of France. You remember me, don't you? He said calmly. Lemoyne looked stunned. In 2022, you held a closed-door session in Paris. You lobbied to have met a threat to regional stability. You said I was too young, too bold, too African. The audience froze. You called my fight for independence reckless populism. He pulled out a black notebook and flipped it open. But do you remember this letter? It was a scanned copy of a secret memo stamped with the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs logo. You offered support to a rival general, promised him security and communications bank. If he removed me, that ambassador looked pale. But what you didn't know was he gave meth letter because even he couldn't betray his people. Traoré stepped forward. You tried to erase me, but I'm not a file on your desk. I'm a man, and I come from a land you used to own but no longer control. The audience erupted. Someone in the crowd shouted, Viva Putin, and just then, a phone rang live, and a voice the world had forgotten returned. A moderator rushed to the podium. Mr. President, we have a live caller on these emit line. Traoré nodded. The logger screen lit up. Grainy video. Bad signal. A woman in her late 70s appeared rapid in a faded scarf. Hello, this is Mama Zanab calling from Kaya. Gasps again. Some recognized her immediately. Mama Zanab was a respected or thought to be dead after a 2021 military raid. Traoré's face softened. Mama, he whispered. She smiled faintly. Ibrahim, I watched them burn our school. I watched them silence our songs, but I lived long enough to see you speak for us all. The room went quiet. My son was taken by those who sold us out. But a day I cry not from pain, but pride. Tears streamed down Traoré's face, sodded millions watching. Let them call you, but to us, you are thief-ender. Before the rain, the screen flickered. She was gone. The hall stayed still, moved. That was not just my elder, Traoré said. That was your conscience. A storm was swelling across borders, and the most painful part of the story hadn't even come yet. Traoré stepped forward, dagging hands trembling slightly, not from fear, but from memory. Let me tell you how a bag of rice became me a weapon. The audience blinked in confusion. He pulled up an image on the summit's main screen. It showed sacks of food, stamped with the logo of a major Western aid organization. These bags were part of a hunger relief program sent to northern Burkina Faso during the 2021 drought. He paused. What you don't see, what's not printed, is that some of the rice was expired, molded, rotting. Gasps again. And what's worse is that this organization knew. He held up a scanned email. The screen zoomed in. Internal memo. Send before Titans. When us. Delegate looked away in shame. Children ate thatras. Some vomited for days. My cousin's daughter, Marima, never woke up. Heckled his throat, voice cracking. She was 8. Her last words were, Mama, my tummy is burning. A woman in the crowd sobbed openly. You call that charity? We call it slow murder. Then her asked the room a question that taunted everyone watching. Would Thisha pan if those children had white skin? The room sat in stunned silence. Traoré reached into his coat, pulled out a letter, folded, worn, personal. Before I became president, I trusted Somione. I loved. Her name was Aisha Apaz. Soft sorrow in his tone. She worked for an international media group. Smart, bold, beautiful, and I believe it in her. He looked down. When I first took office, she told Meshed, help share our truth with the world. He opened the letter, but she was paid to destroy me. This is a wire transfer. $75,000 from a political firm based in London. Her job was to leak evidence that I was planning a dictatorship. He let the letter fall to the desk. It was all fake. Murmurs his shock. But what hurt most wasn't the betrayal of Thuold. It was hers. Because I told her things I never told anyone else about my fears, my hopes, about my father. I looked up slowly. And now the world must. Sometimes colonizationists come in the form of war. Sometimes it comes in a kiss. The crowd was stunned, and Traoré, his eyes wet, whispered, but even a broken heart can beat for justice. As Traoré stepped back, a journalist handed him a breaking news tablet. He froze. Then he looked up at the hall. Something is happening. The screen behind him lit up with live drone footage. Massive crowds in Ouagadougou, Bamako, Nema, Abidjan, Dar, and Kinshasa, 6 capital cities. Protesters filled the streets. Flags waved. Signs read, "We are not irrelevant. Try us for us." Some cried. Others sang. A little boy on someone's shoulders held a picture of Mama Zanab. These people were watching, and now they're standing. Traoré's voice cracked again. They're tired of being statistics. They want clean water, real hospitals. They want the world to stop stealing and start seeing. Cameras zoomed in on the drone feed. Elderly, women barefoot marching, with tears down their cheeks. We didn't ask for this fight, Treya said softly. Butha's story put it in our hands. And then the drone zoomed out. From above, 6 cities chanted one word, Trey. The summit hall exploded, not with applause, but with a heavy silence. History was no longer being written. It was being rewritten in the streets. Trey slowly stepped back from the podium. His voice had already shaken through him, but now it softened. There's something I've never told anyone publicly. Not even my cabinet hepaused. His hands trembled as he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small folded piece of paper. A handwritten letter, faded and crumpled with time. This was written by my father, today's bore. He died. The hall held its breath. He was a teacher, one of the few in our village. When French forces pulled funding from local education programs in the late 90s South, he started teaching under a tree. No chalkboard, no Zalari, just hope. A photo of his father with young students appeared on the big screen. Tears welled in many eyes. But when he got sick, there was no hospital, no ambulance, no doctors, just them carrying him on a bicycle for 2 hours through the bush. A pause, silence. He died before we reached the clinic. His voice broke. He used to tell me, even if I die, Ibrahim, teach the world to respect your people. The letter shook in his hand. That's why I'm here. Just as Tro's voice faded, a French stood up in the crowd. Mr. President, she said sharply. Isn't it true? Your government shut down foreign media channels last year. Camera swiveled. A trap was being laid live and ruthless. But Trump didn't flinch. We shut down propaganda, not truth. The journalist raised a tablet showing headlines. Trump silences press. Burkina become a dictatorship. Gasps again. But Dentro did something no one expected. Hezamald. Let's ask the people. He took the screen. It lit up with a live street poll recorded that morning. In Ouagadougou, one woman wrapped in cloth said, if freedom of the press means lying a Buddhist, then we want freedom from that press. A young man added, they didn't film when their children starved, but they rushed it when we fought back. The audience sneered. You called it censorship. Traoré said, voice firm. We call it protection. Even a BBC reporter nodded silently. Because, when cameras only point at your flaws, they become weapons. The French journalist sat down, and Theron applauded for the first time, without hesitation. Trump had said nothing since the storm began, but now, Trump turned, fully toward him. The world watched. Mr. Trump, you once said Africa has nothing to offer, that it's a place of dirt and chaos. He took a slow breath. But our chaos is the echo of your bombs, our poverty, the price of your wealth. Trump stared back, arms folded. You called me irrelevant. But relevance is built in towers. It's built in tombs, in forgotten villages, in children who never made it to school. Trey stepped closer. You mocked us in front of the world. But I carry through it of 20 million souls who deserve a long silence. Even Trump's expression shifted. His eyes strangely soft for once. No smirk. We may be poor, Traoré said, but we are not powerless. And then something shocking happened. Trump looked down, not in shame, but like someone who for one brief second felt the weight of history. The cameras got it, and the image, the low by truth, would go viral within minutes. But Traoré wasn't finished, because Waith was about to say, next would leave. Fueled speechless, the room remained still. Cameras flashed, the world hung on every breath. Traoré reached once more into his, this time not for proof of the past, but for a glimpse of the future. Before I came here, I visited a schooling rural Kaya. The children had knockers, no shoes, no ceiling, but they had something powerful, a dream. Unfolded a paper scrolled in already pencil. They gave me this, a pledge. This screen behind him lit up with the words written in uneven handwriting. We will build what was destroyed. We will speak what was silenced. We will never let them forget us. Signed by 118 school children, ages 6 to 13. Murmurs is turned to tears. You may not see them, Traoré said, but they see you, and they are rising. He held the paper over his heart. This summit isn't about me. It's about them, Theons buried in silence, the ones who still believe, even after everything, that Africa can rise with dignity, not pity. The applause this time wasn't polite. It was thunderous. But Trop's finamosage would turn those tears into rivers. Last night, before this summit, Traoré began softly. I had a dream. The lights, his voice became more fragile, like a man remembering something too heavy to carry alone. I was walking through a desert, alone. The wind was loud. The sky was dark. And he heard crying. He paused, eyes wet. I followed the sound. I found a little boy barefoot, holding a broken toy car. He looked up at me and said, "Will they ever let us live, Papa?" The room broke. Diplomats wiped their eyes. The interpreter's voice cracked, translating it into French. I didn't know how tones were him, Char whispered. But when I woke up, I realized it turned slowly to the cameras, looking not at Trump, not at the delegates, but straight at the people watching at home. That little boy is every African child, waiting, hoping, dreaming. He placed both hands on the podium. We have waited long enough. Then silence, heavy, sacred. Even Trump remained still. Ibrahim Traoré raised his head one last time for the line that would change history. The lights above glowed golden now. Outside the summit hall, thousands had gathered with candles, singing softly. Inside Traoré stood tall. You called me or looked directly at Trump. But I speak for millions who were never allowed in this room. And if that makes me irrelevant. He leaned forward, voice thunderous, but then irrelevance just made Traoré listen. Gasps. The entire hall rose to its feet, a standing ovation. Some delegates were openly weeping. Others clapped with bothans over their hearts. Trump remained frozen, expression unreadable. The world already sharing the clip. Traoré speech. Voice of Africa. Irrelevant. Went viral. Social media timelines flooded. Journalists wept on air. Even cynics were quiet. Traoré wested down from the podium. But as headed, something stunning happened. A 9-year-old girl from the crowd ran forward, waving the pledge paper from school in Kaya. He knelt. She hugged him. Cameras captured it. The photo became the most shared image on Earth in 24 hours. And just like that, the world changed. If this story moved you even a little, don't leave without doing 3 simple things. Like this video, to raise your voice with ours. Comment below with words, Africa is not irrelevant. Subscribe and hear more powerful truths see, don't want told. Because this isn't just a video, it's a movement. Let's finish what Trop started.